having lots of experience and pouring it into your writing is no guarantee of success, and conversely, success is no guarantee that you're writing especially well. You know, I mean, you could take something like the Aragorn series. Those were written by a guy in his early teens when he started. He clearly had zero experience of the world, and what he was really doing was transposing his own love of certain stories that he'd already read. But it was massively, massively successful. He tapped into something. He found, you know, a common nerve that millions of people loved, and those books did very, very well. So that's the first thing to say, that, you know, there's the issue of becoming, you know, a good textured writer, and then there's the issue of becoming a successful writer. Those two things are not necessarily the same. And I say, especially now that YA fiction is so big, I'd say it's eminently possible for a young writer to become very successful without necessarily having gone out and lived a huge amount in the world. I don't think it makes for especially good writing, but, you know, that, who's to say? You know, it's ultimately, most people want to make a living from their writing, and to say that's certainly possible without having spent 10 or 15 years of, you know, bashing your head against the sharp corners of the world. Then I think the second thing to say about that really is that experience is a funny thing, and you won't necessarily use it directly. You know, I mean, I spent 14 years as an EFL teacher, but I didn't actually write about EFL as a profession. I didn't write about teachers and students, for example. So, you know, the old story of write what you know, that's complete bullshit. You know, there is no need to do that. You should write what motivates you. You should write what lights your fire, if you like, write what drives you. And obviously you lay your hands on what you can to make that work. If you've had a lot of experience, if you have lived a lot out in the world and seen a lot of things, well, that's great, because you can pour that into your fiction. It will texture it. But if you haven't, I think it's the passion that will carry you rather than the experience. The experience is a useful tool along the way, but it's the passion that will carry you. And the other thing, of course, is that experience in itself is a funny thing, because, yeah, I've done a lot of traveling and I've spent time with people from all sorts of different cultures and places around the world, and that's a kind of experience. But similarly, you know, if you grew up in a hard-scrabble working-class neighborhood in an inner city like Detroit or Glasgow, say, you could easily, by the age of 25, have had a lifetime full of very interesting experience right there. You know, experience doesn't necessarily require you to get on a plane. It very often starts right outside your front door, or, you know, even in your own home. So, and a lot of writers have done very well out of that as well. I mean, look at Jonathan Franzen. I mean, most of what he writes is very close to home. It's very much stuff that are going on around him in a very normal context. So it depends what kind of thing you're going to write as well. If you want to write, you know, Ian Fleming-esque type adventure stories, yeah, then it helps to have done a bit of traveling, because you can, that will color up your storytelling. But on the other hand, if you're planning to write a story that is about urban angst, well, if you live in a city, that urban angst is right there for the taking. You know, so all depends. You can't really give really very general meters for something as broad as writing, because it's such a broad church. It carries so many different, you know, what kind of writing, what genre, for what audience, all these things apply, and they will, you know, those will mean that there are different answers to that issue of experience depending on where you are on the map.